Okay, welcome back. So, today we're gonna go ahead and talk about basically local variables. Again, we are going to deal with the same with the same thing, with not the same things, but the same general outline. And I'm just gonna talk about local variables. I have changed a few things here, actually quite a bit, and we'll see how that actually works. So pretty soon we will actually go into building a real application. I do believe that it shall be in like one or two more chapters, and then we're going to start building the application after we have went over some of the very basic things. So some of the things that are different here. I mean, you will have the code, of course, so you can take a look at it, and you can take a look at it on the screen as well. That's the best way, actually. But if you want to just copy paste it from the links that will be provided, you absolutely can do that as well. So again, we have this class. There is this private, some sort of a variable here, property, and down below we have toggle as before, change mail, but aside from change mail, right below it is a key press function. Now, this is going to actually serve us rather well because this method does not return anything, and it accepts a parameter, which is actually a keyboard event. So it can detect when you press a key on your keyboard. The if statement here, so it first receives a keyboard event, some sort of a keyboard event. And then there's an if statement which checks whether or not the key code from the event is equal to 13. Now, what is 13? Well, which key on the keyboard do you think that 13 represents? Well, you can look it up on the net if you want to answer this question for yourselves, but it represents enter. So it represents the return key on your keyboard. Here, actually, let me just show you quickly. You can just type in HTML key codes and open up pretty much any site. I have opened up this one, csstricks.com, and you get the list of values and corresponding keys. So you see backspace would be 8, tab would be 9, enter would be 13, shift 16, etc. So you even have the codes for letters and decimal points and function keys. You have these keys for everything. You have the codes for each and every key on the keyboard, or you should have in any case. So I'm just gonna go ahead and close that. You also have the ASCII table. You can take a look at it there if you wish. 13 should still be the enter, but here it says carriage return. The enter is basically the return key, the way I put it anyway. So it checks whether the event key code is 13, basically checks whether the user has pressed enter or not. If you press anything else, obviously it's not going to have the return value. The key code will not be 13. It will be something else, as you just saw on the site. And then we have some sort of a variable called input element, and this input element has basically event target gets our element, and then we need to cast event.target, which is an HTML element, to input element. Casting is basically converting something to something else. So if any of you are familiar with C++ or some programming languages fairly similar to it, casting would look something like this. This is just pseudocode. This is not real code. If I say 2.2, basically 2.2, as I said, this is not legit code. This is just pseudocode. 2.2, which is a type double in C++, meaning that it has this part and this part. A floating point in C++ would be 0.2, for example. But that does not matter. What matters is that this is a method, this is a way of converting things. So since this is of type double, this is going to get converted to type int. And type int, well, the decimal portion of it will get truncated, so it will 2.2 will become 2. This is, of course, all irrelevant for you now. I'm just trying to explain what is going on here in simpler terms. So we're basically converting this into this. Well, the return value of this into this type. So we need this event.target that gets our element. We need to cast that into an input element. So this will be an HTML element, and then we need to cast it to an input element. So as I said, casting is basically just converting things. Then down below, don't worry, I will very soon correlate this with the HTML code and things will become a lot clearer then. So down below, we simply call the change mail function or method, and then we pass to it the input element dot value. So we pass to it this. We pass this parameter to it. And this will be a string, and change email will then basically perform its logic where the current user email will be changed. Hence, this value here will become, I don't know, something else, something that we input on the screen in the prompt. Now, let's go ahead and correlate this with our HTML code and see what is going on there. Well, let me just see if I can do this. So close tabs to the right, close save tabs, split up, split down. Okay, so I'm just going to do a split like this, the split of the screen, so that you can actually see things a little bit better in terms of correlating. Okay. HTML, no, HTML is going to be down below so that we can see, I just want to be able to see the methods down below, and here you will be able to see the HTML code. Anyway, so again, there are a few things that are different here. The very first thing that you will notice, and the very thing that I wish to explain here, is this referencing here. So check this part out, this div, this separation here. So we have some sort of an element, which is basically input, and it accepts text, but we are creating a reference to it. Angular 2 allows for references to elements, to HTML elements inside of the template. We declare a reference by basically using a hash and then, I don't know, name of reference. It doesn't need to be a, it can be like test or whatever you can type in pretty much, as long as you stay true to some naming conventions and rules. Anyway, immediately down below, we're stating that the value of input is a dot value. So a dot value gets the value from the input above. So from here, we type something in. So we've typed some sort of a text in, and then we're retrieving that text. And we're going to retrieve it via interpolation, which we have learned previously. So a is the element, and value is the value of element or whatever we've typed in. So that's what a represents here. Anyway, this is not going to work. So this is clearly a wrong example. This is not going to work. It's missing something. It's missing an event. Why? Because basically, if we do not call any events, nothing's going to happen. No changes will be detected. Only when an event is triggered will Angular actually check for any changes. If it does not check for any changes, it doesn't matter if we have enacted those changes or not. Angular 2 will not check for them, and hence nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to be displayed on the site for us. Nothing's going to happen in that sense. Immediately down below, I have a right example of it, and the only thing that separates the wrong from the right here is this. So this part here. So a dot value will get the value. Well, not a dot value. B dot value will again get the value from this input, and I don't know, if we type in some text like hello, tralala, blah blah blah, that's what's gonna go here. But we have this event. This is the only reason that this works, because we called an event, and it's not just any event, because I mean, you need to call an event, but you don't actually need an event for anything. So what do? Well, you call a so-called stupid event. What is a stupid event? Well, it is an event that basically is called and does literally nothing. So it does not interfere with us in any way, manner, or form. Why do we need this? Because, as I said, Angular will only check for changes if an event was emitted. If it was not, if we do not do that, no changes will be detected, like completely pointless. In fact, let me just go ahead and save this, and let's wait for the loading. Ah, the beautiful speed. So, we have the first one. So we're looking at the first one. So div input text a, value of input is, div. Okay, so let's type something in. I don't know, tra-la-la-la-la-la-la. And we click, the value of input is tra-la-la-la-la-la. Okay, so this apparently works, but let me just type it in. Test, value of input is test. Again, they work. But it should be actually outputting it. It should be actually outputting it without me doing the clicking. Test, nothing, but tra-la-la-la-la, and changes are detected. So when I click, I have obviously called some sort of an event. Therefore, this is displayed. But if I just type in, I don't know, y, nothing happens. But if I type in y down below, you see they both will change. This one here will reflect the changes here, and this one here will reflect the changes here. If you don't believe me, let me just show you. Like, I'll type in t, and you see it happens there. But if I type something in here, like 4444, nothing happens. There are no changes which have been enacted. But again, RRR, and when an event is called, Angular 2 will check for any changes within the component, within one whole, so to say. Disregard the toggle to click. We're gonna actually come to that. Obviously, if you click, you've called another event here, so therefore the changes are reflected. And any event that's basically called, it's going to trigger checking for changes. But just disregard the toggle click here, because that's something that we're gonna come to in a fair amount of time. Anyway, as I stated, we're looking at this first div. So div input type equals text, reference, and then the value of input is, we're using the reference to get the value. And that value, we're expecting it to be printed out right underneath the input. So if I type in 2222, a good amount of twos, nothing happens. It's not displayed. But look at the code down below. It's exactly the same. Oops, my apologies. If I just do this, no, yes, maybe. Okay. We're going to get to all of these elements, doesn't matter. Anyway, you look at this code up above, the first div, and then you look at the second div, and they are exactly the same except for the key up equals 0, except an event is called here. So if I type things in here, nothing's going to happen. I have them typed in there unless an event is called. Angular 2 will not detect any changes. In fact, it will not even attempt to detect any changes, and this paragraph will not be printed out onto the screen. If any event is called within the component, it should be like that anyway, if I've just typed in 11111, ones get printed out and twos get printed out because Angular 2 has detected the change above as well. It detects all the changes. So this div is for the second input and the first div is for the first input. I know that it can seem a little bit confusing. I gave my best to explain it to the best of my abilities. But if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the Q&A section. Anyway, let's just minimize this. And let's go ahead and check the rest of the things out. The toggle up there click, that was left over from the previous tutorial. You can see the code here, but that has already been explained extensively in the previous tutorial. Why is it so and how it actually works. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here because it's getting rather lengthy, and then we're going to proceed from here onwards down to the bottom.